Today I'm going to talk about a book. A solid chunk of people will click off of this video just from hearing that word, and I don't completely blame them. Everyone is always dishing out some sort of advice, some self-help book, workout routine, whatever the fuck. And they literally all tell you the same thing. That whatever they're offering is the best out there, it's the hidden method that will change your life. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm about to tell you the same exact shit. But I swear to you, this book is different. Or at least it was for me. This book personally has helped me make a lot of positive changes throughout my chud rehab and might be able to do the same for anyone watching. The book is called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and the title is honestly gas, but the subtitle says A Guide into Spiritual Enlightenment, and I know that's just going to make a lot of people raise the red flags right away, especially in younger generations, and I say that because we get force-fed so many quote-unquote solutions to life every single day by people who don't give a shit about us at all and just want our money. So we have like big radars for bullshit, especially when a dude comes along and says, I'll teach you how to become enlightened. Like right away you think, I've heard this a million times, this dude is full of shit and he probably just wants my bread. I will be the first to tell you that I thought the same exact thing to some degree up until, I want to say my second time reading the book, but honestly, even today. So what the fuck would make any sane person read the same book 5 times? Especially when I thought it was bullshit my first time picking it up. Maybe in part it's because my cognitive skills are like absolutely tarnished from so many years of being addicted to my phone and smoking weed. But honestly, I believe it was because, I know it was because I couldn't deny the things that I was reading in the book. The shit this guy was preaching was like really resonating with me. And another big part that I appreciated was that the author never really tells you that you should or shouldn't believe or think something. He just seemed like he was calling it how it was from his experience. And I literally couldn't help but come back to it. I was like Squidward in that one episode of SpongeBob when he acts like he doesn't fuck with Krabby Patties, but on the low, he's fiending out in the whole cellar full of them after work. I was Squidward, and The Power of Now was like the greatest Krabby Patty of all time. There's this little voice in the back of my head that kept calling bullshit when I would see things like Path to Enlightenment. But it didn't matter because what I was reading kept drawing me back. Like I could not stop. I would even be listening to the audiobook on my way to work and shit. But anyway, enough talking. What the hell is the book even about? Well, the cover says it's a path to enlightenment, but I honestly think it's more like a path to being fucking normal again. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole now, but I think it's safe to say a lot of people around the world are not doing too well in the brain. A lot of us have completely forgotten how to live in the moment and have completely forgotten what it feels like to not have a racing mind 24/7. The author, Eckhart, talks about that throughout the whole book, but he takes it like 10 levels further. So he opens the book by saying that until he was 30, he lived every day in like states of depression and intense anxiety. But he says when he talks about it now, it's like he's talking about a past lifetime or someone else's life. And he opens the book saying that, that's kind of like a pretty intense thing to throw right in the beginning of the book. And if you listen to the audiobook, which he narrates, you can hear that shit in his voice. It doesn't feel like the voice of a guy who wants to off himself, but you can tell he's been through some shit. And he actually doesn't mention this in the book, but if you do a little digging into his backstory, he says that he was abused by his dad growing up and dealt with this suicidal depression even since he was a kid or maybe a teenager. He's also had a couple of scary health complications over the years. But again, he doesn't mention any of that shit in here. And honestly, finding all of that out, not from reading the book, sold me way more on it. Because he wasn't just out here trying to throw a pity party for himself, despite all of that shit he went through. You know what I mean? In my eyes, that counted for something. It kind of helped me put my guard down while I was reading because it told me his intentions were at least somewhat genuine and he wasn't trying to sell me anything or manipulate my beliefs. It really just felt like he was saying it how he saw it. He goes on to explain how everything for him pretty much at least began to change in one night. And he was up really late in the thick of it with his depression. And I'm going to put a screenshot up on the page of what he says, because if you can take a second and just see how he wrote about it, it really set the scene for me and captured me as a reader, not just because of the descriptive language he used, but because a lot of what he was describing sounded like a really bad case of derealization. And maybe I'll do a story time someday and go into this a little more, but I had a really bad acid trip back in high school. And for the next 5 to 6 years, I really struggled with that feeling of derealization and these panic attacks that would come with them. So reading this shit was hitting. And while I was reading it for the first time, I'd never really heard someone describe it on paper like this. You know what I mean? And he's being grandiose and everything because he's writing a book and he wants his words to connect with the readers. But, it was different from anything I ever heard a psychologist or a therapist say. It actually made sense. As he's sitting there with his head spinning, he has this thought. He thinks to himself, I can't live with myself anymore. But that made him realize something. If there's a me who can't live with myself, doesn't that mean there's two of me? Maybe only one of them is the real me, and I'm not just that fully depressed self, the suicidal part. And I'm just going to have to read off this next part verbatim because it's also intense. I was so stunned by the strange realization that my mind stopped. I was fully conscious, but there were no more thoughts. I was gripped by an intense fear, and I heard the words, resist nothing, as if spoken inside my chest. I could feel myself being sucked into a void. Pause. It felt as if the void was inside myself rather than outside. Suddenly, there was no more fear, and I let myself fall into that void. I have no recollection of what happened after that. He says that when he woke up, the depression, the anxiety, the suicidal thoughts, and most of his thoughts in general were all gone. For the next few months, he spent every day wandering around, sitting on park benches, just admiring everything he saw and came into contact with, in this self-described state of bliss. All the while, he claims that he was barely having any thoughts at all. Not negative, not positive, just no thoughts. And as he's watching and observing whatever it was that was in front of him, he realized that he had the power of now. And for lack of a better term, he had become enlightened. This is where those bullshit detectors can really start to go off. A guy claiming that all of his problems disappeared in one fucking night after being sucked into a spiritual void is a tough sell to buy, But I'd be lying if I said that what I was reading didn't kind of appeal to me in some way. There was something in me, that felt like what he was describing somehow lived in me too. And I couldn't fully access it or didn't fully believe in it, but I could still tell that it was there. Maybe it was just idealistic and wishful thinking, but honestly, what good is life if we don't believe that we can be more? The idea of enlightenment has to exist for some reason. It's not just some complete brain slop idea. It came from somewhere. I want to note that I wasn't just reading all of this either and just eating it up as truth. I was extremely skeptical when I first encountered this book. As I was reading about this dude achieving enlightenment, I needed to see some sort of supporting evidence to back it up. So I did more digging, and lo and behold, after his little eye in the self moment, he ended up completely abandoning an academic career at Cambridge University, ran through his life savings while being unemployed and walking around parks for 2 years, and then just fucking packed it up and moved to the Pacific Northwest. Maybe not concrete evidence of someone attaining enlightenment, but it was definitely compelling to find out, Not much gets brought up about his backstory or life after this point. He pretty much just gets straight to the bars after that. And I can't help but emphasize how good of a setup that I in the self shit was for the rest of the book. I had never slowed down enough, at least not in a long time, to remember or realize that I wasn't just a fucking brain. I wasn't just a bunch of thoughts or the self I had created out of those thoughts. And this guy Eckhart just fucking zapped me out of it on like a random Tuesday on my lunch break at the office. He did a really good job at getting me to put down my defense mechanisms, my mental defenses that were usually there when I would read or listen to any kind of music. The rest of the book is really just a big elaboration on that I in the self realization, which I'm gonna do my best to summarize here. Eckhart claims that all of the suffering humans will ever experience in life is created by just one thing, an identification with the mind, which you could also say is a resistance to the present moment, or the now, which he calls it. When we identify with our thoughts or our minds, it's like we shrink ourselves into this limited version of existence where we forget we're not just electrical signals firing off in a pink mushy thing. We're a mind, a body, and a spirit, and they all are equally important to being in tune with the world that's around us. To think we're our thoughts is like resisting the full spectrum of what we really are, and it cuts us off from experiencing the full spectrum of life. You can see this the best in just your everyday life and the things that you do every day. I'll give an example. Have you ever noticed how one day your drive to work fucking sucks? Everyone on the road is a dumbass or just has a New Jersey license plate. Traffic is awful. Like you're just straight up not having a good time. But then on another day, that's really not any different from the day you were just all pissed off on. The music is hitting, there's no traffic, or you just don't notice it. Things feel smooth, like you're feeling good. What is it that makes those two drives different? They can be the same route going to the same shitty job in the same city, and for no significant reason, they can just be super different experiences. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, like that cruising feeling you get when you're on the road sometimes, then I am sorry and you're missing out, because driving can be fun when you're locked in. But I've noticed this shit for years. Like even when I was driving to jobs after high school, I would always try to figure out what the sauce was. What the hell was it that was making me feel so different on these drives that were so similar? And then one day I figured it out. And it was while I was listening to the Power of Now audiobook on my drive to work. I can't remember exactly what chapter was playing, but I do remember that whatever Eckhart was talking about got me to witness that shift in real time. I noticed myself going from road raging to just cruising. And it was the exact second I stopped thinking and I just locked in. I just accepted what was going on the road. If my mind was racing while I was driving, like I'm thinking about this meeting I gotta go into or whatever, I'd be way less patient of a driver. But when I was present and just focused on the drive, instantly cruising. I'd let every song play all the way through, no skips. I was easy on my brakes, and I swear all the lights would just turn green for me. And all I had to do was stop resisting. I had to stop complaining. I just had to embrace the moment that was in front of me. Now, there are a lot of different ways that we can resist what's going on around us. Drugs, drinking, gambling, doom scrolling, buying shit, arguing, complaining, like the list is truly endless. And if you watch my last video, you'll know what I mean by this. But in this book, there is a huge focus on acceptance maxing and letting go of that inner resistance to the present moment. No using vices to run away from how you feel right now. No arguing to feel bigger than other people. None of that shit. In his words, he calls it surrendering to the present moment, which is not passive. It's not the same as giving up. It's more like just not lying to yourself. Surrendering to the present moment is actually being for real with yourself about shit that's going on, which is what actually allows you to make impactful changes on your life and the things around you and in the world. So many guys will just become insufferable over time because they'll have all these emotions built up in them that they don't allow themselves to process correctly. They walk around all worked up, defensive as hell, constantly starting shit, and it's because they've got this mess of unprocessed emotions and resistance stirring inside of them. They're stressed the fuck out, their backs hurt, they start arguments, they close off from people. And I know all of this because it used to be me. When we live life from a place of resistance, when we don't allow ourselves to surrender to right now, we just end up running in place or going even further away from what it is we think we want. We can't see the playing field clearly and we start making terrible plays. So how can we learn to see the field better? Maybe you notice you're like the person I just described, or feeling some of the symptoms of it like stress, but you just can't realize how or when you're doing it to yourself. I ran into this roadblock countless times where I knew that somehow all of this negativity and even the bad stuff happening in my life was somehow or somewhat my responsibility, but I just couldn't see it clearly enough to start working on it. And that's where this next pillar concept for this book comes into play, which is awareness. This is the last concept I guess I'll talk about, but it might be the most important. As I said before, it can be hard to notice all the ways we resist the things in our everyday lives, and it usually isn't until it's too late or we're in a lot of pain that we finally start thinking about what changes need to happen. But regardless of whether we realize something is bad for us right away or we have to spend an entire lifetime figuring it out, the thing that gets us there, the catalyst, is always awareness. And as the author Eckhart explains, it was gaining awareness that he wasn't his ego, that he wasn't those thoughts, he wasn't his brain, that allowed him to let go of his pain. When we become aware of something, it's not exactly like we're learning something completely new. Once we make the connection, once we have the realization, you hear it in the word, you realize, you make it real. It makes total sense. That's the whole point. It's not like anything new happened or changed. We just shifted our consciousness around it. We became aware of a problem that already existed. And I said this earlier, but as you start to grow that awareness muscle, and I swear to God, it works like a muscle. The more you use it, the more it grows. You realize all the shit you ever needed to know, you already knew. You just had to become aware of it. I'm a huge believer that there's a natural knowledge that exists in like everything around us. And if you really need proof of that, just go look up at the fucking stars in a place with low light pollution. You don't need to know all the details of everything that's out there to know that you are a part of it and that it's all connected. You just know it in your bones. And that's why the wisest motherfucker you know will always tell you to trust your gut, because they know deep down you already have the answer you're looking for. You just need help becoming aware of it. And a great place to start is with your gut instincts. How the actual fuck do you feel right now? Are you exhausted? Maybe you should put more focus into getting better sleep. Do your feet hurt? Maybe you need to try wearing different shoes. The examples go on, because you can do it with literally everything. Just quit trying to control the outcomes. Sit back and enjoy the show. You will know when it's your turn to say your lines. To wrap this video up, there's a couple of things I want to touch on. Pause. And one is that using the power of now genuinely has changed my life. Not just reading the book, The Power of Now. The Power of Now as a practice. Even today, I'm far from being anything special. I'm just another guy like anyone else watching this video or anyone else who makes YouTube videos. This is a lifelong journey everyone is on. And while I do personally believe that Eckhart Tolle is, I guess, what you would call enlightened, I don't believe that shit is common. I don't think enlightenment is the best word for it, and I don't believe that it's something that you should strive to achieve. The book was a really good starting point in my journey of becoming less of a degenerate, and there's a reason I'm making a whole 30-minute video about why I think you should just read it, but don't expect to read a book and instantly have your life changed. I did kind of have an experience like that with this book, but it was way more gradual than that. And I'll tell you what, ever since becoming more aware of things in my life, more fucking shit has started to happen. You know, like as you become aware of things, bad things naturally start to leave your life. And that's not exactly an easy process. The real place to start is just with awareness. And you can literally practice that anytime, any place. Just start observing your mind and how you react to stuff, how you feel internally, physically. I can assure you that if you practice using the power of now, it will change your life. Once you start practicing and you get the sauce, you start recognizing it in other people. Matter of fact, you start recognizing that shit in everyone because everyone has the capability for it. Everyone has the ability to use the present moment. It's an inherent part of existence. Having conscious awareness is part of being a human. Another thing you start realizing is that the most admirable humans, the greatest humans in all of history, were all masters of the now. They were all masters at locking the fuck in, which leads me to my last bit. The main reason I started this channel is because I'm hoping that there are people out there with similar minds to me who are going through it and they just need to hear things put in a different way for them to break out of the patterns they're putting themselves through, to help them like separate from the suffering they're creating in their own lives. But there were two major catalysts for the creation of this channel, and one of those was my friend Luke. This is the type of friend where you can literally riff with hours on end. We'd have conversations like this all the time. And one day he sent me a YouTube video from this guy named Pauly Walnuts and a voice message pretty much saying, you should start making videos like this. You send me these voice messages and they just have like pure gold in them. They damn near go to waste just sitting here in iMessages. If you've watched a Pauly Walnuts video, which is definitely possible if this video somehow ended up on your algorithm, I'm pretty much stealing his entire playbook and the content is very similar subject matter, but you know that his videos are all about this type of shit that I'm talking about here. I guess for lack of a better word, it is spiritual stuff. I spent the next week after he sent me that video going through his whole channel, watching every video I could, and then one day, you wouldn't fucking believe it, there's a video on the power of now. Now, what makes this really crazy is that I've spent the last 2 years trying to convince Luke to read this fucking book, and he hasn't. Now, granted, he's reading other stuff. It's not like he's fucking off. He fucks with reading, and he is one of the most baller dudes I know. So when he sent me this YouTube channel that I was really fucking enjoying, and it has a video on the power of now, I felt pretty validated in trying to convince him to read it. If you're watching this shit, I know you're probably reading something else or busy creating your own manga from scratch, but read the damn book. And you too, my very minuscule audience. Peace.